If you thought checking out of the Hotel California was tough, wait until you visit the Dolphin. Here are 19 reasons to watch 1408. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is the place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. Do check out the links below to find my range of Stephen King themed band t-shirts, including my Salem's Lot Slipknot shirt, and my collection of short stories, my newsletter, a bunch of other things as well, blah blah blah, all of that sort of plugging. But most of all, thank you for checking out this video. This is another one where we're going through the movies and adaptations of Stephen King's work in chronological order, and we've reached 2007 and the first of two movies that year that were based on Stephen King stories and that came out on Dimension Films. Starting off, as you know by now, with 1408, a movie based on a short story of the same name that was collected in Everything's Eventual, but actually first appeared as a few scribbled pages in On Writing, as a bit of an exercise for King to show how his editing process works. But then the story hooked him, and he wrote it into a story that then was voiced on the Blood and Smoke collection before eventually making it into Everything's Eventual. You still with me? So this one stars John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson in the main two roles. It has a lot to explore, and I had a lovely time going back and watching it. Now, if you're worried about spoilers, don't be. Anything in this video that might ruin a first-time watch of 1408 for you, I will hide behind a spoiler alert. So at that point, you can just find the timestamp in the description for the outro, skip ahead to the end, and say bye to me there. Otherwise, you can watch the whole thing. Now, if you want to watch this one, it is currently available to rent and to buy on Amazon and a bunch of other places, both in the UK and in the US. Okay, pass me that key. It's time to head up to our room. So my main reason for watching this is simple. It's excellent. This is totally how you should approach adapting a 50-page short story into a full-length movie. It captures the tone and everything wonderful about the story brilliantly and builds on it in a way that is in keeping with what King wrote. And the result is just this terrifying, captivating, gripping horror film that, if anything, makes the story even better. And that's quite an achievement because the story on its own is an absolute banger. The effects here are actually pretty impressive as well. I mean, sure, some of the CGI looks a little dated now, but the way the room keeps transforming and flipping from one situation to another just keeps you as disorientated as our main character is and helps keep you further engaged in the movie. And disturbed. Incredibly disturbed. So what's the hook here? Well, it's the same as the story. Our lead character is Mike Enslin, played by John Cusack. He's this cynical writer who has made a pretty tidy career for himself out of going and spending nights in supposedly haunted places and then writing about them and writing books like 10 Haunted Hotels, 10 Haunted Houses, all of those kind of things. He gets an anonymous postcard saying, "Here's the Dolphin Hotel, stay out of room 1408. So obviously he wants to book room 1408. Now, despite the best efforts of the hotel manager, Mr. Olin, who is played by Samuel L. Jackson, Mike Enslin is determined to spend his night in that room, despite the fact that lots of people have died in that room and nobody has ever survived more than an hour in that room either. Long story short, Mike Enslin gets the key to the room, goes upstairs, and then we get to see what happens. So what I like about this movie is we get more lore about the room than there is space for in the short story. And again, it really feels in keeping with the short story. Some things are merged and swapped around. We get some deaths added. We get some that are made a bit more gruesome. But it all works. It just slops in brilliantly. I really like as well how there's no tiptoeing around the edges of this. As Mr. Olin says, it's an evil fucking room.
It's an evil fucking room.
And the movie leans into that pretty much from the start. Sometimes you don't need anything else than an evil fucking room. You don't need dark spirits. You don't need ancient burial grounds. And you don't need a huge trauma narrative to make an effective horror movie. You just need an evil fucking room and a person in it.
It's an evil fucking room.
That being said, there is a trauma narrative in this one. Mike Enslin is separated from his wife after the horrible death of their daughter. but it's not the dominant driving force as it would be if this movie were being made right now. Again, it just adds to it. It's just an extra level, an extra flavour that works. That's how you can do trauma in horror movies without it being the main thing. So the hotel looks pretty good in this, and if you're curious about where they filmed it, well, a lot of the exteriors were done at the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. Well, a lot of the interiors were actually done in London, in the Reform Club. Now, there's very little gore or violence in this film, but my God, the way they build dread in this, it will have your gut churning throughout the movie, and you will find yourselves just holding your breath at random moments. So let's talk about cast. It's pretty small, and there are only really two folks I want to focus on here, starting with Samuel L. Jackson as Mr. Olin.
About 800 a bottle.
Now, in many ways, this is a bit of a different role for him. Certainly, he's more subdued and less kind of in your face than some of his more iconic roles. But he nails it brilliantly here. He would definitely have convinced me not to stay in that room, and his chemistry with John Cusack is undeniable.
Well, if I can just get the key to 1408, I can get out of your hair.
Oh.
As for Cusack as Mike Enslin, he is terrific. The large majority of this film is him on his own, and he works it. He absolutely nails it. We see him going from this cynical guy who's just here to get another paycheck.
This is it.
And then we experience everything with him and see him transformed. He is captivating throughout. Just top-notch stuff. Lastly, before spoilers, I'll say it again, this film is excellent, and I feel like it's been somehow got lost in the weeds a bit. But it's something that is absolutely worth seeking out, whether for a first-time watch or a rewatch. Ultimately, it's a great adaptation of a great story. And how often do I get to say that on this channel? Not very. Okay, after this point, I'm going to be talking about things that might ruin a first-time watch, such as differences from the story, picking out some of my favourite moments and favourite lines. So consider this your spoiler alert. And if you want to bail at this point, find the link in the description to the outro, skip ahead there, and come and say bye with me. Otherwise, stick right where you are, because I've got a few more reasons for you to watch 1408 coming right up. So in terms of how close it is to the original story, it is pretty close. And as I've said, it actually adds quite a lot more because it was a fairly short story to begin with. But all of that adding works. And I like the attention to detail here. Like there's bits of Cusack's dialogue, which is actually taken from King's intro to the story in Everything's Eventual, not the story itself, which just to me shows that they did this with a lot of thought, a lot of care, and that they are fans of King himself.
Hotel rooms are a naturally creepy place. Don't you think? I mean, how many people have slept in that bed before you? How many of them were sick? How many of them lost their minds?
So I'm going to move on to some of my favourite moments because there were loads of them. Start off with the bit where the clock turns into a countdown because nobody has survived it more than an hour. Yeah, great. We're setting the stakes early on. Also, the moment where Mike kind of punches the picture of the boat and it explodes and floods the room. Brilliant. I also really love the nod to the ledge where Mike is outside the hotel, outside his window, trying to shuffle along to the next window, the next room, only to discover that 1408 is suddenly the only room in the entire hotel. And he's stranded out there on that ledge. Great. But my favourite part has to be the first time we hear the radio just randomly start playing We've Only Just Begun. And that is a song that keeps coming back throughout the movie. So creepy. That's my favourite line. I mean, Cusack has a lot of good lines here, particularly when he's in full-on cynical mode. But my favourite bit is when he picks up the phone towards the end of the movie and it's cycling through the numbers and just saying loads of weird, creepy, horrible shit.
Ignore the siren. Even if you leave this room, you can never leave this room.
8. This is 8. We have killed your friends. Every friend is now dead.
That's kind of my favourite part of the book, the story, and it works wonderfully on screen. Okay, on to connections and Easter eggs. So Cusack had already been in Stand By Me, and he would later go on to be in Cell, which would also star Samuel L. Jackson. And Len Cariou, who plays Mike Enslin's dad in this, was previously in Secret Window. As for Easter eggs, the only one I really caught was the nod to the ledge.
This is it.
Did I miss anything else? Let me know in the comments. Okay, let's talk about the ending, or endings, because there are many endings for this film. So in the theatrical version, Mike survives. He reconciles with his wife, and he ends up getting his tape recorder back from the room, which he does still set on fire. And he listens back to his ramblings with his wife, and they hear the voice of their dead child. The director's cut, which is my favourite and the one that I watch for this rewatch, Mike does not survive. He very happily dies because he knows he's taking out the room. And Olin appears at Mike's funeral to hand over his possessions to his estranged wife. She doesn't want them, so Olin gets back in the car, pushes play on the tape recorder, and he hears the voice of the dead girl. And then he looks in his rearview mirror and sees a charred Mike Enslin as a kind of jump scare at the end. And then there are other versions out there as well. There's one similar to the theatrical cut, but we don't see Mike's wife acknowledge that she heard the voice, so we're left wondering whether it's all in Mike's head. And then there's another version where Mike dies, and we follow his agent, and he discovers some manuscript that Mike wrote in the room, and then Mike's dad says something at the end, kind of the weakest of them. Anyway, they're all out there to watch on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, my favourite's the director's cut. What's your favourite? Let me know. Okay, there we go. 19 Reasons to Watch 1408. One of the very best Stephen King adaptations out there, in my opinion. Well worth watching. Let me know what you think of this one. Whether it's been a while, or whether you've only just watched it, or whether you've watched it lots of times. What do you think of this one? How good is it? Am I overrating it, or is it one of the better ones out there? Also, check out the links in the description to pick up your Stephen King themed band shirts, like my Slipknot Salem's Lot shirt. From my new range, you've got my collection of short stories that you can pick up, my newsletter you can subscribe to, all of those things. But most of all, thank you so much for coming and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Do hit subscribe if you did like it and you want more. Next time, do make sure to join, because we're going to be firing up this month's book special.
That's enough of that.